thank everyone. So I hope you liked the film and found it interesting. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the film. Excellent, thank you. And I have to give a shout out to Margie, who it seems like you're sitting in your car and you're losing daylight. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. You're a trooper. So we're going to spend a few minutes hearing from some local experts for a discussion panel. And we lost some people due to internet connections. Some people signed up, but were not able to join us. So I just wanted to let the panel know that we're recording this discussion section. If you're okay with that, it's all good. This guy's not really happy. It's going to be totally good. So let me just introduce our panel really quickly. We've got Cindy Triechner-Piot, who is the Executive Director of Northern Door Children's Center. We've got Val Baldry, who you cannot see on screen. She's with Door County Health and Human Services. Ann Schmakel is principal at Sunset Elementary in Sturgeon Bay. We've got Sky Reynolds, who is the Coordinator of Employee Support and Development at Door County Medical Center. And Steve Jenkins, Executive Director of Door County Economic Development. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight and sharing your expertise and insights with us. In the limited time we have this evening, we've asked the panel members to each just prepare 3 to 4 minutes of some comments or reflection on the film. We're not going to have Q&A with the audience tonight, but there'll be future opportunities for community discussions, and we'll talk about that at the conclusion of this evening. But let's go ahead and get started. And Cindy, let's have you unmute yourself and tell us what struck you about the film or some things that relate specifically to Door County's child care situation.
I would say in general, what really struck me about the film is when they started talking about the importance of the early years. That's something that we in early childhood have known forever, but I remember distinctly in the late 1990s when the filmmaker Rob Reiner brought what would be mainstream attention to this the importance of early childhood and birth to 3 and the importance of the first 5 years. And I can remember seeing his film and having the infant brain research right there in the film, showing everyone what was really happening. It was something that we as early childhood educators knew was happening, but to have it validated by science was something that we were not accustomed to as early childhood educators. So we were like in the limelight. It was really big news, and it changed the way that we thought about what we were doing. However, what I reflected when I saw the film is that today, decades later, there are still many, many people who do not know the importance of the early years. It doesn't matter how many times we tell them. It doesn't matter how many times you explain neurons and brain development and firm attachments. They still don't seem to understand how important those early years are. There's so much custodial care that goes along with early childhood education that it tends to make people value it less or think that it's less important as far as development goes. And that's just the way it is. Any of you who have had young children or have cared for young children understand that they require tons of custodial care. And custodial care jobs are usually on the bottom of the pile. And that's where early childhood educators have stayed. We're still paid the least of any educators. There's a certain hierarchy of education, always has been. If you teach college, you have a lot of status and a lot of income earning power. If you teach high school, it's not too bad. Middle school, a little bit lower than that. Elementary school, okay. Preschool, you're on the bottom of the pile. So there's always been that certain hierarchy. And no matter how much people understand that early childhood is important, it is a really, really hard stereotype to break. So I just would be really thrilled if people would really get the message out about how important early childhood education is, about how important firm attachments are, about how important it is to really have these, I think in the film they said, great interactions that are brain food, brain builders. That's what early childhood education is all about. It's not about teaching ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's about building that brain so that they can be whatever they want to be in the future. So that's what really struck me, is that we started out the film explaining this information that should be very mainstream information now, and still isn't.
Thanks, Cindy. That is really great information. It's a challenge to us to get that out in the community, and hopefully that's what we will be doing. Let's next hear from Val Baldry with Door County Health and Human Services. Oh, Val, you're muted. There you go.
There, I think that's better. Thank you. Okay, so because I work in economic support and help with people who are having financial difficulties, that's what I'm going to focus on, as well as some questions that people and parents should ask their child care providers. The Wisconsin Shares is a subsidy that helps parents pay a portion of their daycare. It's processed through the Department of Children and Families and their state statutes as to providers that are licensed and certified, and the care that and the standards that they have to care for the children. And parents really need to delve into, who's taking care of their children, what the structure of their child's day is going to be, where their child naps, what the safeguards are, and that's all mandated in the state statutes in Wisconsin. And some of the activities that should be included in a normal day for a child are the language development, using small and large muscles, imaginative play, learning new skills, daily indoor and outdoor activities, active and quiet play, 15 minutes of reading every day, individual and group play. So, I mean, it's so much that a parent is expected to ask the daycare providers when they're going to choose someone that's going to care for their child. Do the children get to play outside? How is it supervised? What meals and snacks are provided? They have to have a meal or a snack every 3 hours. The health and safety measures, if there's medications and cleaners and outlets, and then what type of discipline is used. They should only be using timeouts. There's physical discipline or restraint is prohibited by state statutes. So that leads me now into more of the Wisconsin Shares subsidy. So low-income parents who have children under 13 can apply for this benefit. If they have special needs children, they can have this benefit up to 19 if they qualify. If there's guardians who are not biological parents, they have different income guidelines. So it's really good to just check out the program and see, who could be eligible to help pay for this. Providers have to be licensed or state certified, and we help to pay for the time that the parent is in an approved activity, which is typically work, but it can also be completing their high school diploma if they're under age 20, if they're involved in employment and training. And it only pays a portion, and it's based on family size and income, ages of the children. There's lots of variables, so it's not easy to just say, well, we pay this percent or that percent. So a couple of years ago, they really raised the income limits, not to come into the program, but to go off of the program, because people were really finding that they have this cliff effect. They go get a job, they're having help pay their daycare, they get a raise and then they're not eligible anymore. So the state raised that limit by a great deal. I'm just going to give you an example of a family of 3. To come into the program, their monthly income, gross monthly income, needs to be under $3,349. But before we don't help subsidize, their monthly income can go up to $5,468. So they can make over $2,000 more in a month and still get some help. So the raise that they got isn't eaten up by the daycare. And then just a little bit on the Young Start program. So like I said, the daycare providers have to be licensed or certified. They're licensed or certified through the state. They get a rating of 1 to 5 stars. There's 4 categories that are included in the quality of the care. It's provider education and training, learning environment and curriculum, business and professional practices, and health and wellness. Anybody can go to this website. It's youngstar.wi.gov. Parents can go there. They can see how many stars the provider that they're looking at has. They can see if they've had any type of incidents, so they know that just where the quality is. But it's basically there just to help them find good daycare so they can feel confident in going to work and earning some money and still possibly getting the subsidy to help them pay for it, just to make it all work together. So
thank you, Val. That information is great. I know it's a lot to cover in this small amount of time. I think it's good for people to know that there is this subsidy and that we also have people in the county that they can reach out to help guide them through the process in addition to going to the websites themselves. And whether you are looking for services from a licensed group facility for childcare or an in-home provider, that it benefits families to be informed consumers. These are people providing services, they're businesses, and you are the consumer, and you ask questions and you make informed decisions, and you can have an influence on the care that the providers give by the questions that you ask and your expectations. So all of that is really helpful. Thank you so much. And next we're going to hear from Ann Schmekel, the principal at Sunset Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. The first thing I want to say is I want to go live in the yellow room. That was just amazing. But I want to go back to what one of the parents talked about, how when she had to go back to work, she had to surf between family friends to take care of her child or her children. For me, the biggest issue right now is the disparity. From families who are struggling to find a way to be sure their children have care, any kind of care, just so they can keep working, to kids who are lucky enough to go to someplace like the Yellow Room. In the schools today, we are seeing firsthand evidence of that disparity. The challenges for teachers in a typical 4K classroom go back to a lot of the information they shared about executive function, about the underdevelopment of the child's brain, their inability to sit, to pay attention, to listen, to follow directions, to get along with each other. That executive function is the very first and most important thing that helps a child become ready for school. Schools, operate under structure because of the number of children that we have to manage at one time. And when kids come into school without ever having experienced any structure, it's extremely challenging. The lack of ability to self-regulate their emotions. That probably has been the most impactful concern that we've had over the last several years. Children who come in and can't handle conflict of any kind, can't handle when they don't get their way, when there's a conflict between two students, or we're asking for students to do one thing and they want to do something else, and the outbursts and the emotion that we deal with. Violent emotions, kicking, hitting, biting, running. Sometimes kids just run, that fight or flight. They don't know how to handle the situation, so they run. I think that, you know, as we try to prepare children for school, the importance of early learning can't be underemphasized. Cindy, you're absolutely right. We've known this for a long time. Why haven't we been able to enact some change? The one gentleman said it's not babysitting, it's brain building. Absolutely, that's the case. And I think, you know, we're fortunate to have at least a couple places like Cindy's, and now we have some progress as far as a daycare in Sturgeon Bay, but there's not enough by any means. And parents who are trying to desperately find a place, I know up until just the beginning of school, there were a lot of people who were panicked about what to do about childcare. And to be an informed consumer is one thing, but when there are no options is another. And so it's desperate. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that for our teachers in the school setting, we have done a tremendous amount of professional development over the last several years around trauma and trauma-informed care, and helping our teachers understand when children come to school and they have all of these challenging behaviors, the underlying reason for that. I like to say to them, you know, children aren't bad because they want to be. They have poor behavior because they don't know how. And it's been a very, very big challenge for our teachers to wrap their heads around that, because historically, kids came to school, they sat, they listened, they raised their hand, they did what you asked them to do. And that's not the world we live in right now. And so we spent a great deal of time helping to educate our teachers about what we're seeing now. So I think those were my big takeaways.
Thank you so much. I feel absolutely awful cutting you guys off, because this is just setting the stage. It's whetting everyone's appetite for town hall meetings, because there's so much more to talk about. So we're going to go from talking about the young kids and the child care providers and educators to now moving to the employer perspective. And so we've got Skye Reynolds with Door County Medical Center, who's going to talk to us a little bit about that. Oh, Skye, you're muted.
Yeah, you're muted.
I was just saying, I'm an expert as a mother of my children, but not necessarily a childcare expert. But I guess the statistics in the film is really what hit me. So the reality of that, you know, society wants so much from these kids, but they're not willing to put forth towards it. So I guess that really hit me. And then, you know, you hear about how, and I guess thinking back, you know, at the time of being a parent, you're doing the best you can with what you have at that time. So you're not really able to think about what I want to say, you know, I guess I was in a situation where for 1 year I was at a child care center, and then I was at a home site, and I was so glad I had the home site, but it's not necessarily that it touched on all the things that should have for my kids, but you know, they're going to grow up to be responsible adults. I think. I also wanted to, I don't know if now's the time or not. Should I be talking about hospital?
Sure.
What we're
absolutely.
doing? That's okay. All right.
Yeah.
So the status of childcare in our community has obviously had an impact on the hospital. I wouldn't say that it's a debilitating impact pre-COVID, but there have been some hurdles along the way to work through. So obviously, you know, when somebody comes for a job, it's important to have childcare lined up ahead of that, because you don't want to accept a job if you don't have childcare. There have been a small number of employees that have ended employment due to the cost of availability or affordable daycare. There have been some people who are here as employees, you know, they get pregnant, have their babies, and then they choose to come back at a lower FTE, like more of like a per diem or casual call employee. So, and I'm sure that, you know, the cost of childcare plays into that. So parents are just having to choose between, you know, whether one parent works one shift and another parent works another shift. We have couples that work here, so that adds to it. And then throw the pandemic in on top of that, it kind of throws everybody for a loop. So the COVID has definitely elevated anxiety for everyone. And it's a huge stressor with the childcare issues, even now that kids are in school and, you know, with the positive testing and stuff, and people are having to figure things out. Thankfully, we are, I would say, I did work at Base Shipbuilding, and I'm sure things have changed, you know, after 10 years, but I worked in HR there. And I know, you know, us here, and we don't have a union book that we're living by, but, you know, we are a little more flexible with things than I think, you know, other employers are, which is a great thing that we're able to do that. So in May, we did do we do a culture survey, temperature check for our employees, and we added on to that and did a childcare survey. So we reached out to all of our employees, not everybody responded, to just get some more information about what was lacking, what their needs were at that time. And that was, you know, right after COVID kind of launched itself, and we felt as an organization that it was an issue that was important enough to us that we wanted more information. So we had shared that information at a task force meeting that we had with United Way, and that meeting, I think, really kicked things off. And it ended up evolving into a little more for us. So we kind of worked together as an organization and developed like a Google document where people there was all access to it. So everybody could access that document and add in, you know, if they knew somebody who was available to watch the kids while child care center had closed down or whatnot. So it was kind of a community effort for that. We think of ourselves as one big family, so it's nice that, you know, during these times we can all come together for that. So that document has grown into an employee resource Facebook page where everybody, you know, that works here and some outsiders. So we've had some people who are daycare providers that have friended us on there, and they're able to share their struggles or any, you know, openings or opportunities that are available out there. So we also felt it was important enough to meet with, we met with the Door County YMCA with the Barker Center a number of times. We also reached out to our contacts at HSHS who have an on-site daycare. We are definitely not experts in daycare, nor do we, you know, really want to dabble in that. But, you know, we thought this is an important enough thing for our community. So I guess I would just say that, you know, we have lost some employees. Some people came on when the Barker Center closed, and now to go back to the Door Community Child Development Center opening. So that, I think I said that right. I don't know if I did. But yes. So, you know, it's kind of a sweet, sad thing for us. You know, they're leaving us, but we're so glad that they're able to go back to what they love to do. So that's a great thing. And, yeah.
Sorry, in the interest of time. And I think one of my main takeaways from what you're talking about is that, interestingly enough, even though you've navigated some of the challenges for Door County Medical pretty well, that childcare has had to become a topic that you constantly are monitoring at the medical center, that you're taking a read on the status of employees. It requires that amount of attention and constant monitoring in order to meet the needs of the community. So thank you for sharing that. And then we're finally going to wrap up this evening with Steve Jenkins, Executive Director of Door County Economic Development, to take us up to the 30,000 foot view and give us some thoughts on the community impact.
Well, thanks for having me on this important program. That is a powerful film that I wish people would take the time to sit down and watch. I mean, it is just unbelievable. The statistics, the understanding of what it means to society as a whole to take care of these children early on, because as one said, this is our workforce. And that is so true. And therefore, it's an economic development issue. But, you know, I've been in this business almost 46 years. And we have talked about this that long and still haven't seen appreciable progress in addressing the issue. And we keep asking, why can't we make progress? Well, you know, I think it comes down to one very important concept. Everybody thinks it's somebody else's problem but theirs. It's a community and it's a societal problem. And so everyone has to be involved. It's not just someone else's issue. And if we keep having that attitude, 46 years from now, some others will be sitting in a similar type of forum talking about the same issues. And so it's up to us. It's not up to the state, although the state has an impact, obviously, through regulations. But we as a community have to say, this is more important to us, and we have to do something about it as a community. Again, it's not someone else's problem, it's our problem. And I want to go back to the discussion about the executive functions. That is one of the most important issues facing employers today. It's not hard skills, it's those soft skills that are so critically important to employers today. And we hear it all the time. I had an employer say, give me someone with soft skills and I will train them myself in what they need in hard skills. But we're desperate to find kids, employees that have those soft skills, and we've just not focused on it enough. And so it is an economic development issue, but more importantly for Door County, it's our issue. And we can't expect someone else to solve it for us. We have to solve it. And that means everybody pulling together in the same direction, employers, local government, nonprofit agencies. We have to break this cycle of doing the same things over and over and expecting we're going to get better results. We have to innovate. We have to look at it differently. And if we don't do that, we're just going to go further down into the abyss and not be able to crawl out of it. I think this is one of the most, I call this one of the new infrastructures of economic development. And there are two or three others, but this probably is one of the most critical because this is the development of the workforce that will drive our economy. And so we have to quit looking at it as a child care issue. It's an economic development issue. It's a societal issue. And if we don't stop this cycle, we won't see the change that we need to see.
Thank you, Steve. I think that is really important. That's a great message to end on, that it's a community issue and it's up to us. And I also agree with you wholeheartedly that as many people as possible need to see this film to appreciate the multi-perspective and the multiple layers at which it impacts our community. So please encourage your friends, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, your bosses to sign up for the viewing next Tuesday. We'll have another showing of the film and a discussion panel afterwards. And then we're also going to continue the community discussions with regularly scheduled Zoom town hall meetings for the near future. It'll be Zoom meetings, but as you can tell, you can have great discussion in Zoom meetings, and we have to keep the momentum going forward. And I think when they watch the film and then you talk with people in the community who live this day in and day out from the various perspectives, that's the way we're really going to get a better understanding and start focusing on solutions rather than just wringing our hands that this is a problem and it's been around for so long. We're truly vested in helping solve the child care issue in Door County and making sure that high quality, affordable child care is available for all our families in one form or another across the county. So I want to thank everyone People might need to log off. I completely understand. I'm available to stay logged in for a few minutes if people want to comment or talk a little bit more. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. And we'll hear from you. You'll get some emails from us for follow-up if you're interested in getting more involved. Thank you, everyone.